everyone, and Merry Christmas. I am I am doing a very short video because I have to hop over to the radio show on Nerdorama and do a review on Wonder Woman. But I wanted to and my hair looks this way, an ode to Wonder Woman, because it is set in 1984, and this is what we did in 1984. Well, not as many black people, but we're gonna keep up with the flow. I want to make it. I'm very disappointed in Wonder Woman, but I want to pause on my disappointment and say that I expected it to be bad. I didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. And so let's pivot to how bad it was, to think about other movies that you can watch that are absolutely great. Soul, that released today as well on Christmas on Disney Plus. Excellent, excellent film. Number two, I watched. It's really frustrating because there's some movies. First of all, there's a lot of content that's being released, even though we're not going to the theater itself. I'm like, my gosh, I cannot keep up with as many movies that are coming out and as many shows. And so I watched Shirleys Love. For those of you who've been complaining about Ma Rainey, and I some of the complaints are silly. A lot of them are like, well, I wanted to know more about Ma Rainey, and it's like, well, this is an August Wilson play. This is the movie. August Wilson was not writing a biography on Ma Rainey. He did 10 plays from 10 different decades, and I think Ma Rainey was the first in the decade time sequence, and 3 of them have been put onto television or into movie format. 2 of them went to theaters. Fences, Ma Rainey was supposed to go to theaters, and another one went straight to TV, and that was The Piano Lesson. And each one was written in different decades. This was set in the 1920s. This was supposed to be covering black people's life experience within from 1923 until I think like the 90s. So I don't understand people's criticisms at all. But I couple this with Shirleys Love is another version of black people's experience, and it was very, very touching, beautifully written. And I know that they struggled with getting this to be made because people didn't think that this story would be interesting. I thought it was gorgeous. I appreciate every second of it. Okay. I've also been watching, there's this show on Netflix, and I'm going to tell you why it captivated me. There's a reason why it captivated me, is because about 20 years ago, my good friend, best friend, brother, whatnot, he was a guy. I mean, he had to go to a school lesson, and his school lesson required him to go see this movie called Rabbit Run Fence. And I've loved Rabbit Run Fence, and I've watched it multiple times, and I was stunned when I first watched it. I was like, wait, I was alive when this stuff was happening. Like, I mean, I thought that was just mind boggling. And so this movie called The Sapphires is talking about, it's based on a true story, just like Rabbit Run Fence. Both of them are about the Aborigine people in Australia and their struggles. And I was actually I was researching a few years ago about Australia educational system, and my gosh, I mean, the way they treat their native people is alarming, very alarming. And many people are not aware that that Australians are not naturally indigenous people, or not naturally blonde hair, blue eye. And I just find, but there's a Sapphire show. It came out a few years ago, but I mean, it is such a good film, even though a lot of it isn't accurate. But these women who were absolutely still alive to this day are have a great story to tell, because they're actually educated, and I don't even see how, the history of Aborigine people in Australia, many of them aren't educated, and many of them do not have jobs. And a lot of it is so heartbreaking. I mean, the level of discrimination is heartbreaking and alarming, and it makes the struggle in America just seem so silly. Anywho, I'm also watching like this other show called Tiny Pretty Things, and I mean, on Netflix. I'm just like, I'm going to finish it. I don't know if I recommend it though, but I am going to finish it. It's a you know, it the reason why I struggle with it is because it's not that I don't like teen or young adult shows. And the odd thing is that I like young adult books, but I don't know. It's not that I don't like young adult shows. It's just that sometimes young adult shows are so not worth it. Not worth, like, I'm no longer interested in the story. So I'm holding on. The last one I want to recommend, since Wonder Woman is really a struggle, okay, is Life in a Year. I really like that show. I mean, it's such a good show. It's a good movie. It's a Jaden Smith movie, and I was just in love with the show. Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. There's some parts that I didn't quite side with, but it was still enough to where I thought it was a good role for him. And I think the thing that makes Jaden lovable is because he's really not trying to be something that he's not. And he's not, he grew up in Calabasas. He's not trying to talk about the struggle. Like, this is not his story. And so he's really moving and operating in his lane, and I appreciate that. Last one. I watched Let Him Go. It's not a bad movie. I love me some Kevin Costner, but the idea of paying $19.99 for a rental, I figure I should have been buying it for $19.99. So I've been holding out to not watch it, but then I just broke down and was like, I really wanted to see this, and I should have saved my money. It's not bad. I just wouldn't have spent $19.99 for it. I think that it's just not worth it. No shade. It's just not worth it. Save your money. Okay, so if you do want to do the, okay, so I'm going to end this on that note. I'm going to come back tomorrow